Ex-cult members, what was your breaking point? I was in a spiritual wellness community for 3 years. My breaking point came when our leader announced she could cure cancer through energy transfers, but it would cost $5,000 per session. My aunt had just been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and I watched our leader try to convince her to skip chemo for these healing sessions. Something just clicked in my brain. I went home that night, packed a backpack, and left at 3 a.m. Didn't even leave a note. My aunt ended up getting proper treatment and is 5 years cancer-free now. Sometimes I still miss the sense of belonging, but then I remember how they preyed on vulnerable people, and I feel sick. For me, it was the money. Started as a self-improvement group with weekly meetings. Then it was seminars, $300 each. Then advanced courses, $1,200. Then elite membership, $5,000 a year. I was eating ramen to afford this stuff. The breaking point. Found out our enlightened guru was living in a mansion with 7 luxury cars while telling us to release material attachments. When I questioned it, they said his energy needed proper vessels or some BS. Left that night, lost all my friends in the group. Best financial decision I ever made, OL. Our group wasn't huge, maybe 30 people. We lived on a compound in rural Oregon. I was born into it, so didn't know any different. My breaking point was when my little sister got pneumonia, and our leader wouldn't let her see a doctor because faith healing is the only pure medicine. I watched her struggle to breathe for 2 days before I snuck out and called 911 from a gas station 3 miles away. They kicked me out for betraying them, but my sister lived. She's still in there. Turns out pneumonia is pretty easy to treat when you have actual medicine. Who knew? The love bombing stopped. Just like that. One day I was the chosen one, and the next I was isolated, criticized, made to feel worthless. All because I questioned why the leader needed a new Mercedes. For 3 weeks, nobody would speak to me directly. They'd talk about me while I was in the room. Sister Amy doesn't understand sacrifice, or Brother Michael should spend more time in reflection on his selfishness. Psychological torture. One morning I was doing dishes and realized I couldn't remember the last time I genuinely laughed. Walked out that afternoon, never looked back. My breaking point wasn't dramatic. We had to write confession letters every week detailing our impure thoughts. One Tuesday, I was sitting there trying to think of sins to confess and realized I was making stuff up because I was scared of not having enough to write. Then it hit me. I was literally inventing problems with myself to please someone else. I didn't leave right away, but that was the moment the spell broke. Started secretly saving money, got out 6 months later. Sometimes the breaking point is just a quiet realization. I left when they tried to arrange my marriage to a 42-year-old elder when I was only 19. My parents were thrilled about it. The night before the commitment ceremony, my roommate, who I thought was totally brainwashed, slipped me $200 and a bus ticket. She whispered, "I can't leave, but you still can." Caught a Greyhound to my grandmother's house in Arizona. Found out later that my roommate had been planning her own escape but got caught. I still feel guilty that I made it out and she didn't. For me, it wasn't one big thing, more like death by 1,000 cuts. The final straw was when my dad died and they wouldn't let me attend his funeral because he was an outsider. Said it would contaminate my spiritual progress. I snuck out to say goodbye anyway, and when I came back, they made me do a 3-day cleansing ritual and public confession. Standing there in front of everyone, halfway through apologizing for loving my dad, I just stopped mid-sentence, said, "This is insane," and walked out. Best incomplete sentence of my life. Our church had this thing where the leader would receive divine messages about members' secret sins. Basically, he'd call people out publicly for stuff they'd supposedly done wrong. It was always vague enough that you could interpret it to fit something you felt guilty about. One day he pointed at me, said God told him I was impure in mind and body and needed to confess. I realized he was making it all up when he detailed a sin I supposedly committed on a specific date when I was literally in the hospital recovering from appendix surgery. I laughed out loud. You don't laugh at the prophet, apparently. They controlled everything, what we ate, wore, who we talked to. Had to ask permission to call family. The moment I knew I had to leave was stupidly small. I found a chocolate bar my mom had snuck into my bag during my supervised visit home. I was so scared of being caught with it that I ate it in the bathroom with the shower running, crying the whole time. Halfway through, I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm a 27-year-old adult crying over chocolate, left 2 weeks later. Sometimes it's the small absurdities that wake you up. I was deep in for 8 years. What broke me free? We were told to cut off my sister because she was negative energy. She had concerns about our leader. That same week, the leader bought his 3rd vacation home. I asked innocent questions about how this fit with our simple living values. Next meeting, I was publicly called out as having demonic interference. They assigned me a thought guardian to monitor my questions. That night, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Called my sister from a gas station payphone. She drove 6 hours to get me. Weirdly, it was a Netflix documentary that saved me. Someone's visiting relative left their laptop open, and I saw like 10 minutes of a doc about another cult before someone shut it off. But those 10 minutes showed exactly the same manipulation tactics our group used. Word for word, same phrases. Like I was seeing our playbook. Couldn't unsee the parallels. Started secretly reading about cult tactics online at the public library. 3 months later, I was out. Sometimes all it takes is seeing your situation reflected back at you from the outside. My cult was super into cleansing rituals, which meant drinking this horrible tea that made you vomit and have diarrhea for hours to expel toxins. We did it monthly at first, then weekly. My breaking point came when our leaders said children as young as 6 should also undergo cleansing. I watched my nephew get violently ill and become dehydrated. They wouldn't let me take him to a hospital. Had to sneak him out at 2, and saying we were going to pray at the sacred tree. Drove straight to the ER. Never went back. He's a healthy teenager now. They had us convinced the world was ending on a specific date. We sold everything, quit jobs. Some people even gave up custody of kids to unbelieving spouses. The date came, nothing happened. Leaders said we had been faithful, so God gave the world an extension. New date set. Repeat. After the 3rd failed apocalypse, I was sitting in the prayer room and just started laughing uncontrollably. Couldn't stop. They tried to exorcise me, which made me laugh harder. Walked out still laughing. Best day of my life. Was in a personal development organization for 4 years. My moment came during a retreat when they separated us, sleep-deprived us for 2 days, then made us sit in a dark room. Leader came in screaming about how worthless we were without the group. The woman next to me started sobbing uncontrollably, saying, I'm nothing, I'm nothing. She was a freaking pediatric surgeon in real life. Something snapped in me. I stood up, told the leader he was full of shit, and walked out. They followed me to the parking lot, saying I was throwing away my only chance at happiness. 10 hours later, still waiting for that unhappiness to kick and all. Our leader claimed to channel an ancient warrior's spirit. Very convincing, different voice, knowledge of ancient languages, etc. My breaking point. Walked into his office, unannounced to ask a question, and caught him practicing these channeling sessions in front of a mirror. Complete with voice exercises and referring to notes on the ancient language. When he saw me, he just froze mid-sentence. We stared at each other for like 10 seconds. I slowly backed out, went to my room, packed, and was gone within the hour. No dramatic confrontation needed. I grew up in the cult, so it was my normal. We weren't allowed any outside media. When I was 16, I was working cleaning offices at night and found a National Geographic magazine. Started sneaking reads whenever I could. There was this article about different worldwide religious practices that described our exact group as a controversial isolationist cult known for its manipulation tactics. Seeing ourselves described clinically from the outside was like cold water to the face. Took me another year to actually leave, but that magazine was the first crack in my reality. My cult was focused on our leader's divine revelations, handwritten messages from God that he dramatically received during services. One day I was asked to clean his private study, a big honor, and found drafts of the next day's divine message with edits and rewrites. Multiple versions. Even notes like emphasize donation importance here. Just sitting on his desk. Didn't confront him, but took photos with my hidden phone. Left that night. Sometimes I wonder if he left them out on purpose. Maybe part of him wanted someone to end the whole charade. Mine's simple. Our leader made us cut contact with all negative family. My mom was dying of cancer, and I wasn't allowed to see her because she'd once questioned the group. She passed away, and I miss saying goodbye. At the memorial, which I attended secretly, I found out she'd been sending me letters for years that the group intercepted. My dad handed me a stack of unopened envelopes. Reading her words, watching her handwriting get shakier as she got sicker. I never went back. Some betrayals are unforgivable. We had to do these public fault sessions where members would point out your flaws and you'd have to thank them. It was brutal, but we thought it was making us better people. My breaking point came when a new girl joined super sweet kindergarten teacher. First session, they destroyed her, called her fat, ugly, worthless. She was sobbing uncontrollably. I was supposed to join in, but instead heard myself saying, "This is fucking wrong." Room went silent. Leaders started talking about testing my commitment, and I just walked out. Took the new girl with me. We're still friends 7 years later. I was the loyal enforcer, the one who brought straying members back in line. My wake-up call was sent to counsel a teenager who was questioning things. I gave her the usual spiel, and she just looked at me and said, "Do you actually believe what you're saying, or are you just repeating it?" Couldn't sleep for days after that. Started writing down our teachings and examining them logically for the first time. The whole belief system collapsed like a house of cards. Had to face that I'd spent years hurting people for a lie. Hardest thing I've ever done was leave and try to make amends.